Within this presentation, we're going to take a look at how to program a kiosk system within PixelPoint. We'll start out by explaining the concept of kiosk systems, basically explaining what one is and how it functions. Next, we'll look at the licensing requirements for the kiosk application and how to configure Pixel32 INI. After that, we'll go into back office and take a look at how to apply a kiosk menu and program a kiosk employee. Then we'll go into Form Designer and take a look at the various screens and how they're programmed, including a new form specifically for kiosk force questions. And finally, should the modifier order pages and force questions for kiosk items be different from those same items used within the POS, we will look at how to apply a special kiosk forms tab within Product Setup and apply those changes. In terms of point-of-sale systems, a kiosk is a self-ordering POS station. It lets the customer interact with touchscreens, sound, and motion video to place the order themselves rather than wait in line for a counter representative. Kiosks are common to the quick service industry and can be found in establishments that experience high volumes of orders. By having customers place and pay for their own orders, fewer service staff are required, and the workload of those there is reduced, streamlining the flow and speed of operation. Most kiosks require the customer to pay for their order on the spot using debit or credit, but they can also be used to save the check for retrieval by the cashier. Kiosks are tricky to design in that they must be self-guiding to the user. No matter what button is selected, the user will be taken to the next logical screen for that selection. It must take into account all possible selections. The system must also be self-contained in that the user can't exit out of the kiosk application. No matter what they do, they will always remain within the confines of the POS screens. Kiosks typically include timer functionality so that if someone plays with the screens then walks away, the system will automatically return to the start screen after a few seconds of inactivity. Now, the first thing you want to do is make sure that your system is licensed for kiosk. So to do that, bring up the license manager and you should have the entry in there for kiosk. If you don't, contact your account manager and have that applied. The next thing you want to do is bring up the pixel32.ini file. Now, this is located within the Pixel POS folder. And within there, go down to the stations area where you have all the settings for all the stations and so on. Any stations that are to be designated as kiosk stations will require a separate entry within the Pixel32 file for that. And with each one of those kiosk stations, add in the command kiosk equals Y. Going into back office, the first thing you want to do is set up your menu for kiosk. To do that, go into multi-menu setup, and within there, make sure that you create a menu. Let's say we'll call it kiosk, for example, and apply a template to it. Having created that, then you can go into menu setup, and within the multi-menu selection up in the top left corner, you can then select on the kiosk menu. And from here you'll be presented with the screen, which you can then populate with all of the order pages and the associated products as well. Now, it's important that when you do put all of these together, certainly for a kiosk environment, make sure that you do have nice graphic images applied to each one of these as well, because these images will be pulled across over to the kiosk screens. Having created the menu, now go into the Administrator pull-down menu and go to Setup Stations. Within here, advance on to the station that contains the kiosk, or all of the stations that contain the kiosk, and then from there go into each one and select on Menu and choose the kiosk menu, and this will apply it to that given kiosk station. The next thing you want to do is go into Setup Employees, and within here create an employee for the kiosk. Then here, just give it a kiosk name like kiosk 1, 2, 3 or whatever the case may be. Make sure that you assign this employee with a manager authorization or a manager job position. The reason for this is that you want to make sure that when the person is going through the kiosk, they don't run into things that require manager authorization. So we want to make sure they have sufficient access through the system that they can go in and do a complete transaction and voiding and whatnot as well. So make sure they have a sufficient job position for this. Having done this, then go back into Station Setup, go to that kiosk station, And over on the Advanced tab, you'll see there's a field here that says Kiosk Employee. Select on this and go down to where you have that kiosk employee you just created and assign this to the station. Now what will happen here is that when this station is started up, it will automatically log in with this kiosk employee, so that there's no swiping, there's no manual entry of an access number to get in. It will be set for the initial screen to get into the kiosk right off the bat. So now we're at the point where it's time to go in and start creating the system itself, the kiosk system. And so to do that, go into Form Designer. Now within the Form Manager screen, you'll notice down the left-hand side we have a list of all the different form applications, and we want to select on the one that says Kiosk Forms. Now upon doing that, you should come up with a list of all of the different templates that reside within the system here. We have welcome, menu, and so on. And each one of these represents a different function within the kiosk application. In the event you don't have files loaded in for these, you can actually download them off the MyPixel website. And the location is within the Documents folder, and then Technical Resources POS, and then within there we have another subfolder called Version 9. And in there you will find the download with all of the templates. Now when you do bring them into the system, you will find that they will create all of these files called KIK files. They're KIK extensions. And each one of these represents a kiosk template. And these go within the Pixel POS folder, and within there the subfolder called templates. And so in there you should contain, it should contain all of these KIK files. And then you select on any one of them. Now the system may ask, do you want to import into the system? You say yes, and then it will go about applying it, and so on. And then you should have all of these different templates within here. Now, the one that you want to make sure that you always have available on the system here is the welcome one, even if you don't use all of the other ones. But within here, the welcome template is the one that will be the default one that will show up when the kiosk starts up, and it's automatically logged in with that kiosk employee. Then it will go to the welcome screen. The reason for that is that the ID for that welcome template is actually the lowest number, and the system looks to the lowest number, and that's the one that it's going to start with. And so in this case, it's always the welcome one. So make sure you start out with that. Now, from this point then, select on Open, and it will then present the Form Designer screen with whatever has been automatically loaded up with that particular screen. Now, just taking a look at, for example, I'm on the welcome screen right now, and I'm just going to bring this up so you can take a look at what it is. And so within here we have, welcome to the PixelPoint Kiosk and so on. Of course, you can change this around to whatever you want. This is a flash presentation that comes up. And you'll notice here it says touchscreen to begin. Now, the reason for that is because when you are setting up things such as, for example, a flash presentation, if I was to select on this flash right here, then you'll see over on the right-hand side in the navigation bar, I've got all of these different things that you can apply to it. Now, one of the things that is very important within kiosk applications is the navigate screen. You'll see here it says navigate, and it will go to now the menu template or the menu screen. And so by selecting on this, okay, it's actually an action. All right, we have a function type for this flash, and it's called action. And within this, the function name will be a new order. And so in this, it's going to create a new check on the screen. It is a flash as well. And along with this, when you select on this item, because now it's a function button as well, then in that, it will navigate you to the menu screen as well. Other things you can apply within this, if desired, as well as you can populate the wave information as well. So within here, it may play a jingle or some kind of a verbal instructions on how to do whatever it is you want the user to do. And so anything of that nature, these are the types of things that you will want to look at within that. Now I'm just going to bring up another one here. So we'll go back into this, and let's say it takes you now to the menu screen. So I'm going to now open up the menu screen, and we'll take a look at that. So within here now, I've got a generic menu screen. And here, if I was to bring it up on the screen, you'll see on here what kind of information can come up. And so here's all those order pages that came up, and within this as well, there's an audio that comes within it, just instructing the user in terms of what you want them to do. And within here, I've got a little function button to pay now. This will take you to the finish screen, for example. And within this, you'll notice it's kind of wobbling back and forth because, again, it's also a flash presentation as well. And so just coming in to take a look at some of the functionality that I've got within this, if I was to come down, let's say, to that particular button, for example, So there's the button right there. So you'll see here, Flash Player. So it's also a flash image. I've applied the image to it. Within this, I'm going to navigate to the finish screen, for example, and all kinds of other little things you can do with that. Again, the action, okay, it's a function button, so it's an action button, a function button. And within this as well, this particular function is it will finalize the order. And from there, it will navigate you to the finish screen. So what you can do is just take all of this information. You can change it around and so on, but you've got a lot of good foundation here to kind of get a good understanding in terms of how each one of these screens works and what kind of things you can program into it as well. One other thing I want to point out is this little icon right here. That is the wave list, okay? And so within this, it actually brings up that wave file where it instructs you in terms of what it wants you to do on the system. Another thing that you can also program in here as well, and this is very important for kiosk applications, is the timer. Because within this, if someone touches on this and, oh, okay, that's not interesting, I'm going to walk away, then you want this timer to actually kick in. And you'll see over here on the right-hand side, I've got timer information. And within this, I can indicate, for example, navigate to cancel order. So this will take you to the cancel order screen. In here I've got interval where it's set to 60,000. Now that's 60,000 microseconds, which basically comes out to about 60 seconds. So basically after a minute, then it's going to execute this timer and take you to the cancel order screen. And from that, it will sit on that screen, allow you to cancel out, and if nothing happens, then it's got its own respective timer where it will then take you back to the welcome screen. So it's very important that this whole thing is very concealed and it guides the customer through one thing or another, and the user may be at any point, they may just walk away and just abandon this whole thing. So make sure that every screen has some form of timer to navigate you to the appropriate screen to get out of that should they decide to just walk away from it. In the event the kiosk system will also require forced questions, there's one other area that you'll need to go to within Form Designer, and that is within Question Forms. Now selecting on this, there should be a kiosk question form that's available. Again, if it's not, you will find this as part of all those files that you can find within the templates. However, this one will be with a QST extension. Now, with that being said, we have here a kiosk question form. And upon selecting that, it will bring up the form for this. Now, this is basically a kiosk screen that is designed for forced questions that would be applied to it. And just make sure that the continuity of this matches up with the rest of the kiosk system as well, in terms of colors and the presentation of items and so on like that. And of course, you can change this around any way you wish. Having created the forced question form, the last thing you want to do is go into Station Setup again. And within here, skip on down to the kiosk station. And within here, go into the field that says Question Forms. And in this, you should have your kiosk form, and you just apply that within there. So what will happen is on the kiosk screen, a couple of things here. First of all, we have menu selected for the kiosk menu. So that menu is what will show up within the kiosk station, and it will default to the welcome screen. Also underneath that, we have question forms. And as far as the question form goes, then if there are any forced questions to be applied to this station, this kiosk station, then it will use the kiosk question form. As far as the finish form goes, don't really worry about that. You will need something applied in there just to occupy that field. But in terms of the actual finish screen, that will be pulled from whatever is set up within the kiosk in terms of all those forms, because they will navigate to that kiosk finish screen, so to speak. And then finally, over on Advanced, don't forget that you've got the kiosk employee, and you want to make sure that that kiosk employee is applied to this screen. Now, none of this will really take place unless you've got that setting within Pixel 32 INI for kiosk equals Y. So make sure that's in there as well. When the POS starts up, then it will now load the kiosk and automatically log in. And from this, you'll be presented with the welcome screen right off the bat. And this will just continue to cycle on through until someone actually touches the screen. And now from this point, the system will now take you into where you have all of your order pages. And then from there, you can select on an item. Here's now all of the products associated with that order page. And you can select on it. Here's the forced questions screen. And you can continue answering forced questions and whatnot. Please make your selection from our menu. And when you're finished with this, you have options such as canceling the order, modifying the order, basically selecting on the item and then choosing what you want to do. Please choose your method of payment. or you can go to the finish screen. And from here, you can pay it off, cancel the order, and they'll bring you back to the welcome screen. So the whole thing is self-contained.